Rude talk show host confronts Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, but their response stuns the audience. The cameras rolled, the audience clapped, and the brightly lit stage buzzed with energy. At the center of it all sat Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, side by side on the plush guest couch, their smiles warm as they waved at the crowd. Across from them, the talk show host leaned forward, a smirk playing on his lips. He was known for his controversial style, sarcastic, blunt, sometimes downright rude. And tonight he was ready to stir things up. "So," he began, tapping his cue cards against the desk, "Keanu, Sandra, you two are basically Hollywood legends now. But let's be real. Don't you ever feel like maybe it's time to, I don't know, step aside for the younger generation?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Some chuckled, expecting a witty comeback. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing the dig beneath his words. Keanu, ever composed, simply tilted his head slightly. "Step aside," he repeated as if testing the phrase. Sandra raised an eyebrow, crossing her legs. "Are we in someone's way?" she asked, feigning confusion. The host chuckled. "I mean, come on, Hollywood is brutal. Younger stars are taking over, and at some point you got to wonder if there's a shelf life for actors, right?" The audience murmured again, a few gasps mixed in. The tension was thick now, but Keanu and Sandra didn't seem fazed. Keanu, calm as ever, leaned back in his chair. "I don't really think of art that way," he said simply. "It's not about age, it's about the stories we tell." Sandra nodded. "And last I checked, people still enjoy watching us." "Unless you know something we don't," she teased, flashing a playful smile. The host hesitated for a moment, caught off guard by their ease. He waved a hand dismissively. All right. Fair enough. But let's be honest, there must be roles you regret, movies that make you cringe when you look back." Sandra let out a dramatic gasp. "Are you saying Speed 2 wasn't an Oscar contender?" Laughter exploded from the audience. Even Keanu chuckled. The host smirked, sensing an opportunity. Okay, so some regrets then?" Keanu shrugged, his voice soft but firm. "Not really. Every role, every movie, it's all part of the journey." Sandra nodded in agreement. "Even the ones that weren't great, we still showed up, we still gave it our best. That's what matters." The audience clapped, the energy shifting. The host, sensing he was losing control of the conversation, tried one last dig. "But don't you ever feel tired? Hollywood is exhausting, right?" Keanu smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Life can be exhausting, but doing what you love, that's not something you just walk away from." Sandra leaned in, her expression thoughtful. "You keep asking if we should step aside, if we regret anything, that if we're tired. But I think the real question is, why does it bother you so much that we're still here?" The audience roared. Cheers, whistles, claps. It was a full-blown standing ovation. The host, caught off guard, chuckled nervously. "Wow, okay, I see what's happening here." Keanu grinned. "Do you?" Another wave of laughter erupted, and in that moment it was clear the host had tried to shake them to get a reaction. Instead, Keanu and Sandra had done what they did best, handled it with grace, humor, and undeniable class. And the audience? They were completely on their side. The host shifted in his seat, clearly realizing that his usual tactics weren't working. He had expected defensiveness, maybe even frustration, but instead, Keanu and Sandra had turned his jabs into effortless comebacks. And now the audience was eating it up. Determined to regain control, he leaned forward with a smirk. All right. You win that round. But let's talk about something real. Fame. You two have been in the spotlight for decades. Don't you ever get sick of it? The cameras, the attention, the crazy fans? Keanu considered the question for a moment, then shrugged. Fame isn't real. The host blinked. Excuse me? Sandra chuckled. I love when he says this. Go on, Keanu, tell them. Keanu smiled slightly. Fame is just a perception. It's what people see, not who we are. At the end of the day, I go home, I make dinner, I read, I ride my bike. The rest of it, that's not real life. The audience loved this answer. They clapped, some even cheering. The host, trying to recover, turned to Sandra. And you? You're telling me you don't ever get tired of people recognizing you everywhere you go? Sandra grinned. I mean, it depends. If I'm in a grocery store and someone asks me about miscongeniality while I'm buying toilet paper, that's not my favorite moment. The crowd roared with laughter. But honestly, she continued, Keanu's right. We're just people. If you let fame control you, you forget how to live. The host sighed dramatically, throwing his hands up. So you're telling me no regrets, no resentment, no bitterness about Hollywood? Keanu and Sandra exchanged a glance. Then at the exact same time, they both shook their heads and said, "Nope." The audience exploded. The host, defeated but amused, leaned back in his chair. "All right, I give up. You two are officially the coolest people alive." Sandra winked. "We try." Keanu chuckled. "Not really, but thanks." The final applause was thunderous, and as the cameras cut to commercial, the host knew he had been outmatched, not by arrogance or aggression, but by something much stronger. Pure class. As the show returned from commercial break, the energy in the room was undeniable. The audience was fully on Keanu and Sandra's side, and even the host, despite his earlier jabs, seemed to be warming up to them. He knew when he had lost control of an interview, but instead of fighting it, he decided to lean in. "All right," he said, shaking his head with an amused grin. "You two have officially won over this entire crowd, so let's end on a fun note. Since you've been friends for so long, let's play a little game." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Oh boy." Keanu smiled. "What kind of game?" The host smirked. "I'll ask a question, and you both answer at the same time. Let's see how well you really know each other." The audience cheered in anticipation. "Okay, first question. Who takes longer to get ready for a red carpet event?" "Keanu." Sandra answered immediately, just as Keanu said, "Sandra." The crowd erupted in laughter. Keanu turned to her, amused. "Me? Really?" Sandra nodded. "Oh, absolutely. You have this whole effortless cool thing, but I know you spend time perfecting that look." Keanu chuckled. "I just brush my hair and put on a suit." Sandra rolled her eyes. "Exactly. Perfection takes time." The host laughed along with the audience. "All right, next one. Who is more likely to start laughing during a serious scene?" "Sandra!" They both answered at the same time. Sandra sighed dramatically. "It's a problem. He'll be doing some deep emotional moment and I'll just lose it for no reason." Keanu nodded. "Yeah, sometimes she'll try to cover it up, but then her shoulders start shaking and it's over." The host grinned. "Okay, last one. If you had to do another movie together, what genre would it be?" "Action comedy," they both said in unison. The audience roared with excitement. The host leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "You know what? I would pay to see that." Sandra smirked. "Good, because we're doing it." Keanu chuckled. "Wait, we are?" Sandra shrugged. "Well, we should." The audience cheered, and the host laughed, realizing that somehow they had turned what started as an antagonistic interview into something that felt more like an inside joke between old friends. "All right," the host said, finally giving in. "I admit it. You two are officially Hollywood's most untouchable duo, and I mean that in the best way possible." Keanu smiled. "We're just having fun." Sandra nodded. "That's the secret. No drama, no negativity. Just good people, good times, and a lot of laughter." The final applause was deafening, and as the cameras panned across the cheering crowd, it was clear. This interview wouldn't be forgotten anytime soon.